What's going on? Welcome back to the channel. This video comes from both TikTok and YouTube. It's regarding the education system that's going on right now and how it's starting to fail due to teachers or the powers that be over teachers allowing all the students to have, access to technology, AI through apps, through iPads, computers, and anything like that, and how apparently kids these days are, lack of a better word, dumber than what they used to be. You would think that, having all this technology, have access to all this stuff, they'd be smarter. But at the same time, all this technology is making them much weaker as far as, reading comprehension, actually being able to read, critical thinking, verbal skills, being able to communicate amongst each other. It's they starting to fail in those categories. So let's see what's going on, and then I'm gonna switch to two different videos to play the other side of it as well. Without further ado, here we go.
A former English teacher going viral after posting a raw and unfiltered farewell video as she leaves the classroom behind after just 3 years. Listen.
A lot of these kids don't know how to read because they have had things read to them, or they can click a button and have something read out loud to them. I just don't think these kids even care. They don't care about making a difference in the world. They don't care about how to have a resume. They don't care how to write a resume. They don't care how to write a cover letter because ChatGPT will just do it for them. And I think that we need to cut off technology from these kids probably until they go to college.
Hannah is a former teacher, and she joins us now. She posted that video. More than 1 million people have seen it, Hannah, probably more by the time we're on this morning. Why did you post that video?
So I taught for 3 years, as I said in my video. I wasn't always a teacher. I actually started my career in digital marketing. So I've been in the digital world for about 5 years now, or since I've graduated. And throughout the 3 years, I've taught digital arts classes and I've taught an English class. And I would say that in all of my teaching experience, technology has posed quite a challenge. And with AI becoming so accessible to children nowadays, especially teaching in an English or Core 4 classroom, it's been especially challenging, kind of to have the kids comprehend and critical think and think for themselves on certain things.
Yeah.
So on my way out, I wanted to kind of raise awareness and just let people know how AI and technology is affecting their children these days.
Right.
Before they go further, I hear about this a lot from my fiance. She's a school teacher, online school teacher. She teaches English, you know, and she teaches extra classes for students in Texas and other states because I know before I moved to Seattle, I was hearing about it from everyone else, in Texas, how a lot of kids they can't read. They don't know how to read, they don't know how to write, especially write in cursive. They have issues with math. And the thing is, they're letting kids graduate not knowing how to read, not knowing, reading comprehension, not understanding how to critical think, you know, because everything does it for them these days. I remember growing up where you were shamed. I remember we used to laugh at each other in school, grade school, where, the teacher would ask you read certain paragraphs or lines and the kid would stutter or whomever would stutter, they have trouble, speaking. And all the other kids, we would laugh at you, you know. It was shameful to not know how to read. And nowadays they take it as a badge of honor because I don't, for reasons I don't know. They think it's, a flex. They can do everything else. They don't need it because they have AI. They have all this other technology that can help them out. I remember, I would go take my kid to daycare and stuff like that, and kids couldn't read, but they would know all the lyrics to a certain songs. But you ask them to spell certain words or read what's written on the chalkboard, they couldn't. So that's where we are right now. Specifically, a lot of adults they can't read because America right now, I think even in the medical field, we have to teach certain things to people at an eighth grade level because that's how low the standard is for reading in America.
I know, coming from a mother who taught for 33 years, my sister's a teacher in South Carolina, the challenges that y'all deal with, this is even before AI was a thing. I'm sure it's even more challenging now. And clearly, your opinion is, yes, it is. You're a high school teacher. I'm sure your students loved you. We hate to see someone leave education because of problems within the classroom. Give me some examples of what the students are saying to you.
Well, a lot of students, and I do want to be clear, I taught a lot of very motivated and bright children. And so I don't want this to come off as if this is all the kids' fault.
Mhm.
But I do know that a lot of times in my English classroom, I would ask them to write down a short response or just 5 sentences to answer a question. And a lot of times it would be about 2.5 sentences, and they would say, well, I can't think of anything else to say, or, well, why do I have to answer in complete sentences? Like, you get the point from what I'm saying in
Mhm.
just this little sentence. And then a lot of times I would assign essays, long form essays, and I know how children write, especially when they handwrite me things in the beginning of the school year. And so when a student, how I know how they write, typically would give me a very eloquently and thorough essay on a topic that I know that normally wouldn't come from them, I would ask them, was this really you? And I'd run it through an AI generator. And of course, it would say 100% ChatGPT or AI.
Huh.
And I would speak to the student, and they would more so question of, well, if I have to redo this, how much is it really going to affect my grade? Can I just
Oh
take the
my gosh,
zero?
trying to take.
That's sad. They would rather take a zero, take a lower grade, so they won't do the assignment again. It just shows how lazy kids are in America these days. And you compare that to the students or the kids around the world, specifically, Asian communities like, China, Japan, Korea, being stationed in, Japan and Korea, those places, their kids are on it. They are smart as hell. I'm talking about like the average student there, I would say that fifth grader, they probably be at the eighth grade level, if not higher. They're all about their education because they know a good education, having the best grade possible, is going to give you the best outcome in life, the best job because they're all competitive over there. Here in America, we're so lazy. I'll just have somebody else do it for me. I just won't do it. We're so quick to give up as a nation. Oh, it's too hard. I don't want to do it. I'll go do something else. They give up entire, you know, fields, career fields because they don't want to do it because it's hard. You know, especially like in the military, like people come in, you hear them reading, and as part of your job, especially as a military policeman, you have to be able to read citations, read, write, do reports and process paperwork. And you have soldiers coming in, ages, 18, 19, 20, even 21 or 22, they can't read, basic reading comprehension. You say something to someone and they said, you know, you calling me stupid? Like, no, I didn't call you stupid. I said, don't act like you're stupid. You know, that's a big difference. It's just the way the word the word is framed or the sentence is framed. If you take it as you're stupid, then you're probably saying something. No one's calling you stupid. I said, don't act like you're stupid. Words have meaning, and if you read it out completely, you know, it's not being called stupid. But a lot of people they'll take it as such, especially younger soldiers in the military.
Take the easy way
Because,
out. Yeah.
right.
Is it promoting just a laziness among our children?
I suppose, and a lot of them are just feeling as though they don't really need to do the
Mhm.
work anymore because AI will just do it for them. And
Right.
I think
Lazy.
that AI can be in a classroom in a very effective way if we teach children in the older grades how to use it properly. But
Mhm.
if we're allowing them this unlimited access in the classroom to use AI, they're not going to do the work themselves.
Yeah, I know you're a proponent of getting technology out of our classrooms, getting the phones out of our classrooms. I still can't believe some schools are allowing that. Thank you.
Especially because you think about having phones in classrooms these days. That's crazy because we didn't have none of that stuff growing up. I'm part of the sandwich generation, Gen X. I know what it's like before computers. Having computers in school. Game. I remember. I think it was like 9 or 10 when I got my first video game. It was a Sega Master System. It came out around the same time that the Nintendo came out, and it wasn't a common thing for everyone to have these type of things in your house because we read books. We go to the library. Actually, the Dewey Decimal System. I remember using that. having to locate books, get something to read, have like 5 or 6 books that we read at a time, take it to the library, physically have to go there. Nothing was online. And the first time I remember getting online was, I think I was either 11th or 12th grade back in like 1994, 1995, and messing with computers then. Prior to that, we would take like just typing classes. The teachers had to type, and that was pretty much it. And then I got my first computer at the age of 21. So technology was slowly implemented into my life. Students or kids these days, they grow up with technology, and parents are lazy. So instead of dealing with a crying kid or a crying baby, they are quick to throw them a phone, an iPad, or something just to occupy their time. And that's what they do. They got so used to just using technology, and now it's spilling into the classrooms where they should be focused on actual learning how to do basic skills like math, reading, writing, and things like that. But that's not what's going on because we have technology that's taking over, and it's spilling over into college now, where a lot of kids, they'll just send it up. So instead of, I forgot the name of the program where you send your paper and it checks to see if it's plagiarized or not. And nowadays they just, if they do that and it comes back at a certain percent, because I remember when I was in school, still doing through occupational therapy school, you send your paper, if it's over like 20%, you have to come back and rewrite certain things just to make sure you get under that 20% threshold before you can actually submit your work.
Thank you so much. I'm so sorry you had to leave the classroom. What are you going to do next?
Yes, well, I actually am working in a nonprofit now. I run donor relations, development, and digital marketing for them. So I'm back in what I was doing before.
All right, so basically she's going on about what she's doing now and the reasons why she's not a student, a teacher anymore. But I have this other video where it goes further into, an actual high school English teacher, and we hear what she has to say about this.
Why can't we just type it? Why can't we just type it? Well, it's because you'll go on another website or you'll copy it or use.
High school English teacher here. Everything this woman talks about in her video, I'm seeing in my classroom. And from one teacher that has gone viral for teaching videos to another, I appreciate her message so much. I wanted to talk about this part of the video where she's saying like her students complain about why they have to handwrite things. And she's like, well, because you'll go online and AI or ChatGPT or whatever, what I'm asking you to write. And handwriting at least is somewhat in our control to watch the students do it themselves. So right now I'm teaching a unit, House on Mango Street, one of my favorite books to teach because it's really relevant. I teach in Chicago. If you know the story, coming of age in Chicago, all that good stuff. But it pairs with a narrative writing unit for the students where we explore the most important life lessons that they've learned, and they have to pick a specific location in Chicago that is important and means something to them. And then they have to write their narrative coming to ultimately a life lesson learned. And we are doing the whole writing process on pen and paper, baby. Because already before we started reading, I had them doing free write questions on different sort of like pre-reading themes, like thematic questions. Silly me, allowing them to do that on the computer. I'm talking students were ChatGPTing the response to the question, do you believe that where you are born has an impact on who you turn out to be in adulthood? Do you believe it? You human being with thoughts and opinions, do you believe it? And they are going on ChatGPT, write a response to this question, and then copying and pasting
it. Kids are lazy these days. They're not going to learn anything. And then when they graduate, they have barely the minimum, ability to read and write, and they complain when they can't get a job because everybody think they can just get out of high school and become an influencer or become some type of, YouTuber or whatever the case may be. They think that they won't never have to do anything about math, reading again, when those are the fundamental things that we do on a daily basis in life. Reading, you pretty much have to read everything that comes up. Whether reading a traffic sign, whether it's reading, text message, whether it's reading just anything that's in life, you got to read. Math, we're going to use that. Not so much, trigonometry, but algebra, that subtraction, addition, multiplication, division, just the basics. They don't know that. If you want to cripple an entire generation, write it in cursive. They're gonna look at it like, I don't know what the hell that is. I was lucky enough to still, write in cursive. My oldest son, he's 25 now. They wrote in cursive. My younger son, the one under him, 21, they stopped the cursive. So it's funny how, one generation knows and the other generation of kid doesn't know it. It's weird.
Luckily, I noticed what they were doing in one class period and then got to change it for the rest of my classes for it to be handwritten. But I am a fan of going back to the old school because I want my students to have their own thoughts, to have their own opinions. This is bigger than just the students can't read, the students can't write. This is the students do not have their own opinions. They do not have their own thoughts. They do not possess the critical and deep thinking ability to sit with a question for 5 minutes and really decide what they feel about it and then communicate it. Thinking about their own life, their own experiences. It's almost as if they haven't even made meaning of some things. It's
Got to think about it. TikTok average video is what, 15, 30 seconds long? Everybody's got TikTok brain these days. I know a lot of adults, I see it in a lot of adults. Whereas now it's, more children than anything because anything other than that, they're zoned out, they get bored. Or they get lost in what was being said because their attention spans are so short nowadays that they can't focus on anything. They just the next biggest thing, click through, click through. That's all they can think about. That's all they can understand. If you're able to put it within a short amount of time, they'll do it. If not, you lost the whole kid to, boredom instantly.
they're so passive in their own existence. And that sounds terrible, but it's what I'm seeing. So in English, when I'm pushing them to get to those higher level to make meaning of things, it's stupid. Why would I do that? Is this going to make me money? So I'm seeing it. I am dealing with the pushback on having everything handwritten. I have become an expert handwriting reader because that's a different conversation. What is happening with the handwriting? But yeah, I do think technology is erasing our children's ability to think for themselves, to think critically, to think for more than 5 seconds on something and determine how they feel about it. So I'm making them handwrite every step of this narrative because you're not about to have a robot tell your story.
And then it cuts off right there. So, like as she was saying, like children, they have no ability to critically think of anything. You put a basic problem, a word comprehension problem in front of them, and they're gonna freak out. They're not gonna know what to do. They're gonna take things too literal, and they're gonna understand, and they actually repeat it or try to help them out as far as what does this mean? What's the meaning of this? What's the meaning of that? I hear about it on a daily basis. Fiance, like I said, she's does English and she complains about it all the time. I hear how kids in America cannot read anymore. Let's check out some of these comments here. We've already seen AI become way better than teaching than actual teachers. This is a sympathizer, someone who, they probably give their children, technology so they don't have to deal with them. I told students yesterday that the lessons are about doing hard things, working through tough things, and doing things you don't necessarily want to do. The doing things they don't want to do is tough. So if they don't want to do it, it's tough. They don't want to learn anything. They're going to move on to the next, possible easy method. I don't think it's technology. The problem is with the curriculum. Nowadays, parents can assist their children because of what they're being taught is different from how they learned it. I've seen that too, because like I was looking at some, like online, there's some stuff that kids are learning as far as math. And then I compared it to the way I math, long division, the number, draw the thing, put it in there. Now they're doing like blocks and all this other crap. I'm like, what the fuck is that? I get that, but that's the onus on the parent to want to go and learn how to do that. Be more involved in the children's lives. Try to figure out if you don't know it, you seek additional help or training so you can figure it out and learn it because the kid's not going to be forced to do it once he come home or she comes home from school. The parent say, "You do your homework." Yeah, I did it. If they show this new type of core math to the parent who grew up during my time, generation X time, they go look like, what the hell is this foreign nonsense? Like, okay, it looks right. You're going back on their way, versus actually be involved, knowing how to do the math. If not, there's teachers out there online, free, YouTube University. They teach you how to do certain things. You should put forth more effort to be there for the children instead of blaming on the teachers. Teachers only have your kid maybe an hour, 2 hours a day for that particular, curriculum. And it's expected that, oh, the teacher got to teach them everything. No, the parent is the one who's supposed to teach them, because teachers not always going to be there. The parent will always be there. And it just keeps on going. And as a first grade teacher, I agree my kids don't enjoy reading or writing or coloring. They go crazy for free time on the iPad. Of course they do. You know, a reading program is we use where they have to spell. They would say the word Siri and spell it. That's crazy. Siri, spell it. That's
There are
pretty.
2 words pronounced like that. I, N.
Siri. Hey, all right, Siri. I didn't want you to talk. Jesus. You know, that's funny as hell. But yeah, you get the drift. Yeah, our school blocked Chat GPT. Good, you know, because a lot of things going on right nowadays. Like that's all they do. Quick, Chat GPT this, Chat GPT this, Chat GPT that, and that's all they're doing. They're not really learning anything, and it's been scientifically proven. Where you see, you know, I forgot which website it was, but the children's, you know, I think it's the amygdala, which part of the brain, I forgot which one, but it's actually smaller in compared to someone else like over in an Asian country because they're learning and doing all this other stuff. So yeah, that's something to take note of and try to help your children become better, you know, critical thinkers. But that's my thought. That's my opinion on it. Let me know your thoughts and feelings down in the comments below. You know, is she right? You know, is technology actually rotting our kids' brain? You know, one would have thought that it would have been there for the good things, you know, to help us out, but yet we're overusing it, we're abusing it as a people, and we're becoming stupider as a result of it. Like I said, let me know. You know, comment down below, like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell, give me a thumbs up, and I'll catch you next video. Peace.